When the idea of writing an essay on Wagnerian heroines first came to my mind during a spring evening in 2009, it all sprang up spontaneously. Both the original idea and main lines of my study could certainly have been begotten within myself at an unconscious level. No doubt it had all been due to so many Berrithian summers. Apart from this fact, Isolde had always been a part of my gallery of characters, living in my novels at the beginning of this century. In fact, she had been a remarkable supporting character both in Helada Blanca and El Príncipe del Negro, my novels located at a time when Tristan was still out of her life. Her role was that of a wise woman, a healer, knowledgeable on secret magical lore, something which she had inherited from her mother, as it is proved through her literary predecessors, Olbergs and Gottfried from Strasbourg's version of Tristan. Nevertheless, my analysis of Wagnerian Isolde is centered on the nostalgy for the lost sovereignty. The creature of the musician from Leipzig does no longer brandish that power as the keeper of some kind of exclusive knowledge. Nor does her own mother, as it is known to us through the princess's words at the very beginning of the opera. Isolde's blame Irish queen for having lost her foremother's sovereignty, that corresponded to a lineage of queens who were also priestesses and sorceresses, and that might have descended from those who had had a wide prestige in pre-Hellenic Mediterranean world like Minoan Crete. I might have belonged to the king of mythical characters like magicians, Circe and Medea. Tristan's offense has meant a double strike against Isolde's motherly lineage, since Merold, her mother's brother, has been killed by King Mark's nephew, who artfully lied to them by hiding his real identity after being saved from death thanks to Isolde's and her mother's healing skill. The heroine's initial lament is also an angry reaction against her own passivity, her inability to evade her fate, Handel sent far away from her own land and family circle in order to marry someone she has not chosen, against her will, thanks to Tristan's maneuvering. Then it is Mark's nephew himself who has designed this marriage strategy. In the medieval literary sources of the opera, the hero does so in order to avoid being his uncle's heir, as he is aware that Cornwall's main barons will not accept him or may even kill him. One way or another, Tristan is responsible for this loss of female sovereignty reflected in Isolde's pianto. But this defeat also conveys some kind of female revenge. Could we speak of victory on the part of femaleness? Could we say that, despite Isolde's lament, female sovereignty still has a powerful influence throughout the whole story? It is Branghen, lady-in-waiting and confidant to the princess, who, fully aware, serves the fateful drink, bringing out all that erotic and emotional potentiality which had been woven between both Tristan and Isolde long ago. Branghen rebels against that role imposed on her by her lady, that of death bestower, and gets back that characteristic feature of female divinity, being a life-giver, empowering Isolde to transform Tristan into a new man, making him be reborn in a different dimension. This is another important element throughout the story. It all begins while sailing from Ireland to Cornwall, when Isolde is being pushed to an existence level she has not chosen. The sea is considered a symbol of rebirth, life renovation, and even of that femaleness that I have mentioned before, that wet depth identified with female womb. That sea, which had initially been a promise of personal and emotional annihilation for Isolde, turns out to be the stage for her sentimental transmutation. And even at the end of the story, the sea is presented as a sort of counter-figure for Tristan, as, at the beginning, it is some kind of channeling vehicle for Tristan's hopes, since he anxiously waits for his salvation thanks to his beloved one, whose arrival seems to be imminent. But unmerciful death comes from the water. Isolde turns up too late, just in time to veil her dying lover, who takes her away to that dimension where they both truly belong. In this background, which symbolizes not only fertile female forces, but also that occult knowledge that seems reserved to women, Isolde has the feeling that not only is she destined to physical disappearance, but that female serenity which is embodies as her mother's heirs will become extinct as well. Her intellect and emotional independence have been ritually sacrificed through that marriage agreement with her family has signed before King Mark's representative, that is Tristan himself. So it's easy to understand Isolde's anger and wrath at the beginning of the opera, with Bargains as powerful spectator. Brangane. Wagner takes back a character pattern which was closely linked to medieval Romance literature, that of the heroine's lady-in-waiting, a noble lady, a very likely second-born lady who is destined to be so to say, the servant, noble servant for a high lady or a princess, and who shares her lady's private space and subsequently happens to be her confidant and the person with whom the main female character has a closest emotional link. This is clearly seen in Brangane's speech, filled with terms of endearment and her bitter sadness at her despair-maddened lady's indifference to her. Isolde is no more a solo heroine like her medieval predecessors, those from Auber's and Strasbourg's novels, but starts being aware of her belonging to the world of darkness. This drives her to choose the fact of facing death through that fateful drink. The potion motif takes us to consider the parallel between the contents of this cup, the germ of a new awareness for the main characters, and the Grail as the source of life renewal. We could even speak of a double parallel relationship. Initially, it is the path to physical death, which would propitiate the projection of both lovers into that dimension to which they really belong. But then we notice that, instead of being a filter that annihilates their physiological functions, it happens to be a sort of psychotropic, which brings out and empowers that erotic emotional force beating deep inside. Another element that makes us see this link between the Grail and Isolde's mother's filter is the passage from being aware of imminent death to the fruitfulness of love plenitude, mentioned by the lovers within their exultant paroxysm blind before that reality around them. It is Brancain, so similar to a death heralding banshee, who reveals them the real nature of that drink. In Act 2, we watch both main characters interact inside their natural environment, the night. Within their true world, they give themselves to a unique way of communicating, alien to daylight world, so unlimitedly human, inside the embracing womb of nightly universe, where they can both fulfill themselves. A clear symbol of motherly entrails, protecting and a life generator for them, and at the same time evoking the kingdom of death, to which they both belong, since from their first encounter Tristan has vindicated in front of bright, deceiving daylight. What is really true love's delight is found within the night and therefore the domains of death. Both lovers lose their individual identities in order to merge with Lady Love, becoming one single person. Fleshy love is sublimated in death realms, anticipating ecstatic Isolde's final exaltation at the end of the opera. A most singular feature of this work is the lovers depersonalizing and how sexual passion is transcended, what makes it very different from its medieval precedents, which is doubtlessly a consequence of that loss of identity suffered by Wagnerian characters if you compare them to their 13th century courtly ancestors. Operatic Isolde has lost the strength and relevance of her predecessors, and her partner is far from that knightly hero and refined courtier which was designed by Olberg and Gottfried. Gifted with such a non-human physical strength and deep cunning which would relate him to Odysseus himself, Wagner lets us see a shadow who does not longer belong to daily world. Tristan and Isolde are in fact a pair of misfits who search for an alternative choice, merging in one being, renouncing to their identity, creating a new being, a new flame. Another important novelty conveyed by Wagner is that Tristan is fully aware of what drinking that philter means, and also that when Brangin serves it, knows what she is doing. It is not a fateful accidental mistake, as it happens in medieval works. She deliberately changes the course of the events. The hero knows, and he also makes us know, that the philter has only enhanced that poison he had been carrying inside, the same he had processed himself out of all that suffering achieved through his parents' tragic passing away and his own love tribulations. That drink was only what has finally triggered him into that death world which keeps him obsessed. Perhaps he is only aware of that when he is fatally wounded by Melot, after Mark's finding him with Isolde. It is highly interesting to see this double side of death that Tristan reveals to us. On the one hand, that force which Isolde counteracts with her saving presence. On the other hand, that realm to which Tristan and herself belong to and to which they are fatally bound. In the third act, love regains its role as one more character in the story, but now it plays the witness to Tristan's agony. Here Gouvernail's part is similar to Brangain's in the first act. Though being under his lord's shadow, he makes a decision which happens to be a turning point in the story. He sends for Isolde, since she is a peerless healer, so as to come from Cornwall to save her beloved. Gouvernail becomes some sort of life channeler. Thanks to this assertive attitude, there comes a dramatic inversion. Tristan desperately yearns for what is solar, daylight, since Isolde now belongs here. That sun which was scorching, deadly, burning, able to eat away his brain only a short while before, now turns into bliss, joy, impetuous blood. But finally, Freudian death drive wins the game. Tristan throws himself within the arms of death, finally defeating that scrap of solar brightness which still survived within Isolde and that she was still trying to keep alive by setting Tristan free from deathly darkness and reintegrating him into solar world, with the consent of King Marx himself, who is willing to forgive his nephew and even renounce to his own wife after learning about what has really happened. Could we say this is Isolde's defeat? Considering the heroine's triumphant undertones when addressing us during what we call the final key passage of the story, it seems it is not so. Though we must remember that this out of mind Isolde is already a transfigured being, alien to the Cornish queen and the keeper of the ancient lord which she had inherited from her ancestors. Isolde is no more Isolde, as it was anticipated to us in Act 2, in the same way as Tristan, as an individual, does not exist anymore, but he is a being of light that transforms his beloved into energy which ascends in spiral waves, sublimating her senses up into an sphere where music, so closely linked to Tristan and his feeling alien to earthly world, something that it is even seen in his medieval literary ancestor, becomes truly pure, reaching its true origin, universal harmony. It certainly makes us shiver how masterfully Wagner succeeds in making us see how Isolde merges into that intangible realm which human understanding cannot reach, far beyond the overflowing emotion that this immensely rich monologue has been generating within us for almost a century and a half. It makes us understand how deeply Schopenhauer's theory on real-world apparent world dichotomy permeates this opera.